Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's event. Just before we get started, I just wanted to go over some administrative things. So welcome back to the Nashville Software Beginners. Today we will be talking about Sass and how it can help us with our CSS workflow. Before we get started, I want to first talk a little bit about the statistics of this group. So for those who don't remember, about a year ago, this group, which was pretty active for a while, the people who were running it decided they didn't want to be involved with it anymore for whatever reason. And thankfully, one of my coworkers, Daniel Malbach, stepped in and said, hey, we're going to find someone who wants to take this over. And that person ended up being Jessica Wood. And then her and a few of the other people working in our group at Asurian decided that we were going to run this event on a monthly basis. And it's been about a year now. We revamped it in September of 2018. We've had 10 events since, almost one per every month, with a few exceptions. And since then, we've gotten 810 new members who've joined the meetup, which is pretty incredible. We have 2,000 approximately total on our meetup, and it's awesome that you all are so invested in yourselves and want to be involved in this group. I know there's a lot of things that you could be doing on a Wednesday night, and I'm glad that you've taken this time to invest in yourself and your community. Of course, well, before that, I just wanted to say that this is one of the only meetups in Nashville that is specifically tailored to beginners. We're here for people who've never written a line of code or have just started NSS or Vanderbilt University Coding Bootcamp or any other bootcamp for that matter. Those are the two that come to mind. We're here for everybody, regardless of how much experience you have. We're not going to be alienating. We want to really just be genuinely helpful. So we're glad to be playing that part. Wanted to mention two companies that have helped us with this event tonight. First of all, Campaign Monitor, the company behind Emma. Thank you so much for having us here. For those who've gone to previous events, you'll notice that there's a lot less security here. It's a lot easier to get here than past events. And although I love Asurian very, very much, I know that we aren't the greatest venue for accommodating meetups because we have an office there with a lot of things that we want to keep secure. But we're hoping on fixing that in our new headquarters 2 years from now, so maybe we'll revisit it then. But for now, we're hoping to have all future meetups here at the Emma Bistro from Campaign Monitor. Justin, would you like to say anything on behalf of Campaign Monitor?
One thing.
So no specific, but I'm just so happy to hear everybody. Software is a great industry, and I can hear great things being here. To learn and to connect the community. I'm very happy to see you.
Awesome, thank you. And of course, thank you, Asurian, for sponsoring us once again. They're the folks who are paying for the pizza and the drinks tonight, which is awesome. For those who don't know about us, we're a fairly big company here. We have 5 offices here in Nashville. We're most well known for providing insurance to the phones of the major carriers here in the US and abroad. I'm very happy to be working for Asurian. I'm also very happy to be a customer of theirs because I can't stop dropping this phone, and I've had to go through that process several times, and as miserable of an experience as it is to have to get your phone replaced, they've made it as painless as possible. In addition to that, we've branched off into working in a lot of different areas, providing enhanced customer support for phones and technology for your phones, providing smart home consultations, providing consultations within the various partner stores, such as Sprint, AT&T, and Verizon, and doing a lot of things in that space. So if you'd like to learn more about us, you can check our website out on this QR code, specifically the product development group that Jessica, myself, and one of the other organizers here was a part of. I work in security full time. But when I was a developer, I worked for the Pluto National group, which this will link you to. It's a really cool group to learn some awesome skills about development in. So thank you so much for coming here. It's now my distinct pleasure to be able to introduce Wes Braga. Wes was my student at the Vanderbilt University Coding Bootcamp starting in January. Prior to that, did not have a lot of formal training in programming. And you really wouldn't have noticed that by working with him. He's one of those guys that you just really want to work with. He's extremely eager to listen to what you have to say, and you want to listen to what he has to say because of the way that he's able to communicate in such a passionate manner. I'm not surprised at all that he succeeded in his goal to become a developer full-time. He is now a junior developer at Xsolis and has been there since the beginning of the month. And I'm very proud of all that he's achieved and will continue to achieve. So not, wanting to have another challenge immediately after going through that grueling boot camp and the job search, he decided that he immediately wanted to give back to the community and tell you a little bit about this cool tool called Sass. And with that, I'll leave it to him to talk about it. Thanks, Wes.
Thanks, man.
Stop share.
How's everyone doing today?
Thank you.
We're pretty good. Check, count next.
Oh wow, I'm just really loud.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh, where's your?
What, Zoom?
Yeah, you can just share. Well, if you're already connected, it doesn't matter. That works fine too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Wes. We're going to be talking about some CSS stuff. Sass, it's pretty cool technology that just adds up to building your style sheets. And we're going to be demonstrating how to set it up and like some basic coding. So a little bit about myself. I wasn't a developer at first. I was a touring musician, and that's how I came to town. Nashville is a pretty good hub for musicians. But I have always been passionate about technology. So right now I work at Xsolis. I'm a React developer working with React and Node pretty heavily. I love everything JavaScript, UI design, front end, you call it. And I'm excited about the new tool album. Decided to put that there. New tool fans here. Yeah. So this is the reality of CSS in a nutshell. You either have on one side the developers that are like, hey, I hate CSS, I can't stand it, I will not code anything in CSS. And there's the developers that are like, yeah, CSS is kind of cool, but you always find errors like that and you usually can't figure it out. And you just leave it as is.
Hey, Wes, can you hit present so it goes full screen?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
top right.
Top right? Right next to the Sherpa?
Thank you. CSS issue, right? So yeah, anyone can relate with this problem? How many of you guys have like tried to design a portfolio page and you're 8 hours deep and you can't get the nav bar to be fixed up top? Yeah, I just ran into that when I was trying to do the exercise I was going to show you guys. So yeah. And usually a CSS file looks like, well, you can't really see it, but I just put together a GIF showing how long that file is. It's about 100 lines of code. It's really hard to debug later on when you try to go back and like you want to change something. So you want to change the color, you want to align things differently. You kind of have to read through all these selectors. It gets pretty hard down the line. So this is why we have Sass. So Sass is what most people call a preprocessor. It's a development tool that helps you write CSS in a more efficient way. But in what way? So you need a compiler in order to transform your Sass code into CSS because our browsers don't read Sass. Our browsers don't understand Sass code and Sass syntax, so that's why we need a compiler. And these are some of the differences. There's really not much. If you know CSS, you know Sass. Sass has only a couple different things that you can add, such as variables. You can create variables and store colors. You can store font types. You can store values for any sort of selector. You have mixins. Mixins are kind of like objects in JavaScript where you can store a bunch of selectors at once and just call it. I'll show it to you guys in a minute. And Sass is modular. So the cool thing now in the industries, and I feel like for many years, is keeping your code modular becomes much easier to go back and like fix things and add to it, which means you separate everything in different files. And what Sass allows you to do is to do imports, import different style sheets into one document. And so you have one master document that branches off to a bunch of other style sheets. You can have your fonts in a different style sheet. You can have your colors, utility things such as the clear fixes. You know clear fix? We never have to do clear fix anymore because we have Flexbox, right? But yeah, it's still not as simple. CSS is a mystery, and I think I landed on the side that I kind of like CSS. I can tolerate it. There's Sass, I think it's cool, so it's a little bit more doable. But yeah, this is what a difference in files. So on the left side, we have a CSS file where you have a bunch of selectors and properties assigned. And this is the Sass file of the same CSS file. And as you notice, it's pretty simple. You look at one or the other, you can tell, hey, I can understand this a little better. This seems kind of intimidating. The other one? So this is the PowerUp that we get, the title of the meetup. So we get variables, we get nesting. You can nest selectors now in Sass. You get mixins, operators, partials, imports, and you get functions. So Sass feels more like programming. You feel more like you have a little bit more control over your CSS selectors, and that's usually pretty good, right? All right. So I'm gonna open up CodePen and just demonstrate what we can do with some Sass. So right here I have just a simple nav bar. It's not totally aligned, part of CSS problems.
Zoom in a little bit. Make it bigger.
I can.
Zoom in.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Whoops.
Yay.
I have to bring it down. That looks better?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, so I built this file so we can experiment with some abstraction. So I'm going to try to simplify this CSS code to be a little less redundant, and that will show you guys what the use of variables and mixins, and I'll explain. So right here on top of the file, here's the coolest thing of Sass now. This is how you store variables. So you can simply declare a variable with a $, kind of like jQuery, PHP land. And this is, you just name it however you want it, and you assign the caller. Now you have access to this throughout your entire file, and you can just call it any URL that you want. For example, if I go over here and I want to change this to red, the light elements, go over here. There you go. So it's pretty cool, and the advantage of having that is, for example, I downloaded a library, an UI library known as Bootstrap. You guys have used it, and Bootstrap has a Sass file in it, which, if you know a little bit of Sass, you can modify that file so your page doesn't look as generic as Bootstrap may seem. Because it comes with standard colors. You got your primary, secondary, darken colors, bright colors. They're all the same, and like you look at a page and you kind of can tell like this was Bootstrap. Now you can change that. You can go on the Sass file and simply drag to the color section, and there's a website that I use that's pretty cool, Colorline. You can just generate color schemes and go through it, see what you like. You can block them, and it outputs the hex code needed for it. So it's pretty cool. You can change that using Sass variables, and you don't have to go in each line and copy and paste your whole hex code here. So that's one advantage. Another one that Sass brings to us is the ability to nest selectors. So right now I have a navigation unordered list here, and these LIs are all called children of that navigation element, right? So what you can do here, instead of having all your allies outside of the navigation bar, you can just have them inside that block. Whoops, I hope I didn't copy anything bad. There you go. Now it becomes easier to organize your code because in any text editor, code editor, you have the ability to collapse on things. And if you have a bunch of them collapse, you know where you go. You know where you go through the list and say, hey, this li belongs to my UL element. Okay, that makes sense. And that saves you from typing a bunch of classes as well. And let's say I could have class nav list item, and you start putting that through all your elements, your file gets pretty polluted. And it's doable, it still works, doesn't change anything in functionality, but it's just, it makes it hard for another developer to come in and what is that? Not everyone has the same name conventions. So keeping things nested and encapsulated, it's a good thing. All right. Another thing that Sass brings us, it's very small but very powerful because now you don't have to declare your element. Let's say if you want to do a pseudo element in CSS. Pseudo elements in CSS allow you to pull different functionalities into the front end of the page. You can select just the first element, the first li. You can select just the last one. You can do, let's give an example. You can do odd patterns, you can do even patterns. So pseudo selectors are pretty cool. Now you can nest your pseudo selectors by simply using an ampersand sign. So you replace this li. Yep. And what the ampersand does, it points back to the parent element in the tree. Make sense? Good. All right. Here's another one that we can nest. This li anchor tag. This is also a common CSS thing. If you want to target nested elements, usually in CSS you just type the element in, anchor, paragraph, another anchor tag. You can get pretty deep like that. And it doesn't make much sense. It's very confusing, I feel like. So you can definitely abstract from that. So I'll put it over here. And then you don't need the li, you just call it anchor tag. And Sass will know that this anchor tag is nested in our list tag. There we go. Now another cool thing, we have access to mixins. Mixins, it's kind of like when you declare an object and you type a bunch of properties in your object. The way you can do in Sass is you assign like mixing, and you can assign a name to a mixing. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to abstract this button so I have access to those properties later on. Let's say if I wanted to create another button like this, and I wanted to preserve that code and just reuse it. Mixings are very helpful and powerful for that. So all you need is, let's say, button style. You give it a name, right? Add another block. And then you can simply copy the whole tag. There you go. And now you just have to call that in the button. So we're going to the button class. Open. You call it include in order to get access to that mixing. Button style. And there you go. Here's our button. And include also works with when you import other Sass files. Let's say you have a bunch of different fonts and colors. You want to import that to your main Sass file. For example, if you do an import fonts, right? And say we have a Sass file called fonts. Now we're going to have access to all the mixings that and classes that rely on that file. And you can simply call them with an include. So that way you don't pollute your selectors with a bunch of properties that are getting repeated, and that violates our dry code. Don't repeat yourself, and Sass allows you to be more dry with your CSS. Cool. There you go. Another cool thing, Sass has built-in functions. And another common thing that happens when you're like working on your CSS files is working with hovers tend to be a little confusing because you want to, let's say when you hover, you want to pick a different color, right? So it's visible, the contrast. So what we used to do in CSS, you would just like assign some different color that would be with the contrast slightly higher, slightly darker or lighter. Now, what Sass gives you is some pre-built functions called lighten or darken. And all you have to do with those, let me do darken. You assign the color, right? Let's see, our color primary. And then you assign how the percentage of how dark you want it to go, right? How dark can this color be? Cool. Now, there you go. Can you guys see it in the preview? Oh, look good?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You can? No, you can't? Oh, okay. Yeah. You can really exaggerate this. I mean, it's pretty smart. Behind the scenes, there's a whole function built that handles darkening your colors and lighting. So, pretty cool, right? Sass has other functionalities that I haven't played around. I haven't found a need for it. Mostly working with variables and mixings, that'll get you pretty good. That'll get you your Sass code pretty clean. So. Now, how do you set this up? I mean, CodePen works, and it works seamlessly because it previews everything right on time. It's real time. But in our code editor, in our development environment, we don't have that. We don't have that yet. So what CodePen is doing? CodePen has a compiler, right? And this compiler is constantly listening for changes in that Sass file. And what you can do here, you can see what the compiled CSS looks like. Click on it. That's some pretty witchcraft stuff, right? It just changes, like, writes the code for you by itself. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's basically it. Sass is just making it easier for you to clean up your code and writes the code for you, so you don't have to worry about the compiled code because you're mostly messing around with source code, which is the code that you're developing and applying in it, right? So how do we install it? That's the thing. So I'm going to show here on the terminal. I'm going to do a quick Sass install. So,
Command plus a couple times, please.
oh yeah,
Nice.
that looks good.
Yep.
All right. So let me go to desktop. I'll create a folder called CSS PowerUp. Oops, that's the wrong.
You already had a folder.
I already have one. Dang. Create a different one. I want to start from scratch, so it will make sense. Names. What's a good name?
PowerUp 1.
PowerUp 1. I like that.
X.
X. Cool. Let's go to PowerUp 1. Cool. So the first thing in order for us to have a compiler for Sass is we need to run Node. And what Node is an environment that runs in our machine that allows you to write JavaScript. For those that don't know, JavaScript runs in the browser. So long years ago, I think Brandon can explain it better than me. Someone had the genius idea, hey, let's run JavaScript in the server. So they created Node. And what Node gives us is a ton of extra functionalities that other programming languages had and JavaScript didn't have. And now we have access to a plethora of different packages, compilers. I mean, there's an npm package for literally anything. You look on npm.js monkey, there's an npm package called monkey, and you find these type of things there. But I don't suggest going in those packages. Download a package that's highly reputable and has a good following, good support. But anyways, we're going to install a package called Node Sass, and for that we need Node. I already have Node installed in my machine. You can the way you can do it, you can go on the Node website if you don't have it, and download it here. There's support for Mac, Linux, and Windows, correct? And you'll be able to have Node in your machine. And NPM. Node comes with NPM. Cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an NPM package here in this folder.
What does NPM stand for?
Node Package Manager, right? And it just manages all the crap that you download online, right? But it's pretty useful. It's useful crap. It works. All right. Initialize NPM package. Cool. I'm gonna create an HTML file, a CSS file, and we'll need a Sass file. Now, you guys see over there main.add.css. You may say, hey Wes, you're talking about Sass and now you're adding an extra letter. What the heck is that? Well, SCSS stands for Sassy CSS, and it's just a extra syntax to Sass. There's other syntaxes that you can use in Sass, such as less, think SCSS is actually a version of Sass that most people use. So SCSS is the type of file that we need to create, right? In order to use the syntax that I just showed you guys. So here we go. Let's run that. Cool. Go to my code editor.
Can you like ls just to show people what files like that they were actually created and
Oh,
everything?
absolutely. Yeah, so with this command, touch index HTML, style.css, main.scss, you can create multiple files in one shot. You just have to add them on spaces. So my files have been created in the folders. I have my index.html, I have my main.scss, our package is right here, in our style.css. Cool. Code editor. Alright. I'm just going to start a boilerplate HTML file.
Can you zoom again?
Yeah.
Ah, that's awesome.
That cool? Alright. So we got our HTML file ready. This is what a package file looks like. So npm init will initialize a sort of like a I like to call it manager, like that person that knows everything that's going on and like writes down everything that you need in your folder. This is what the package.json is doing. So right now we don't have anything installed yet. It's simply a setup. We have our folder name, PowerUp. We have the version of the package that's running. And this is just a placeholder script. We're going to be messing around with the scripts later. So the package that we're going to need to install is node Sass. So npm install, right? Node-Sass. And save that. Right? And these commands, they go straight to the npm cloud, and it knows where to find those packages. And it's kind of like if you went to the website and you hit, hey, I want to download this package. This is what npm is doing for you inside the folder that you're in the directory. Pretty cool. It's pretty smart. So there you go. We have node Sass. And as you see, node Sass is under dev dependencies. What is a dev dependency? You want to take a shot?
Something you need in dev.
In dev.
Something
What
you
is
don't
dev?
need in production.
We are devs. We all hear this word. What is a dev?
It's a package you don't want to ship when you're actually deploying your website.
Right. So dev stands for development. So when we're working in node Sass, we're not working with files that you're actually using in the directory, such as if you downloaded jQuery, you're using jQuery to write JavaScript. With dev, you're using Node's compiler to kind of translate your Sass code. So this is only used during development. And during development, there are no rules, right? Just production. Sometimes. Cool. So we got node Sass here. Now, how do we set it up? Well, in order for node Sass to know which file we're going to target, which is this main.scss, this is where we're going to write our Sass code. But as of right now, if I run the compiler, it won't know that. So there's a little setup that you have to do. And you do it here under scripts. And what scripts does is it allows you to build commands that will tell npm, hey, run this, or npm, run this in particular. So you're basically teaching npm how to interact with the packages you have. Some packages already come with scripts, and you just have to follow their rules and guidelines and syntax. So here we go. I'm gonna write the how. Oops. Compile Sass in order to compile Sass. And then followed by the command. And this command is what's the compiler gonna run and how it's gonna find the files. So the package, the Sass, followed by the second words needs to be the input. And the input file is the file where we're gonna be writing our Sass code. So we're gonna have to go one up, because it's outside of our package position. One up, main.s CSS. Now, our next word is the output file. And what the compiler is going to do is going to read our Sass code, and it's going to translate it, and it's going to spit it out to our CSS. Sounds cool, right? All right, let's see. Main.css, it's style.css. There you go. There you go. Cool. And now here, I have a terminal open. VS Code has an integrated terminal that allows you to run the same commands that you run in your shell terminal. Like in Windows, you have a command prompt. We have the terminal here. If you run bash, it's the same thing. So it's pretty cool. Let's run this. And the way we do it, in order to we run scripts, the syntax for it is npm. You tell the npm node package manager to run compile Sass. And that's it. You don't have to run this part, because this part is just the targeted files that's gonna try to find in your folder. Oh, one more thing I forgot. You have to add a flag, a -w, which means for watching. Our compiler, by its nature, it's going to translate the code, spit it out to CSS, and end. And that's it. I'm not going to do anything else. Now, if you add the flag, you're telling the compiler, hey, keep watching for changes or anything that I do, so the node Sass is going to keep running. If you type one line of code, you save, it's going to rerun again, it's going to write that beautiful CSS for you. Save here. Try to run this again. There you go, it's there. It's listening to changes. So let's do the following. Go over here to my main.scss, and I'm going to open the style.css on the side. Oops. I'll lock this thing. There you go. So put it on the side. Another thing I need to link that style.css to the index HTML. There you go. And again, guys, our HTML file is not going to grab anything from the Sass file. Remember, our browser doesn't understand Sass. And we're only using Sass as the middleman, node Sass as the middleman to translate the code that we're writing, right? So you don't want to refer to the Sass file in your HTML document. Cool. Now we go run. Cool. So I'm just gonna change this tag to a different color. So add a color variable, right? Let's do color primary. It's gonna be this cool gray-ish. Always use that for backgrounds. And then right here, let's do H1. Color. And just reference that color. Pretty scary, right? You just wrote the CSS. And you can add more things like you can add and you write it over there. Pretty cool, right? Let's check out the index HTML. We have everything saved. There you go. I changed the color here up top. Our compiler is listening to changes. It changed the CSS file. Whoops. Got rid of it. There you go. Pretty cool, right? And if you combine that with the VS Code that has a feature for hot reloads, if you download, I think I forgot the name of the extension. Live server. There you go. It's one of those things that you just download once and just keep it forever, right? So if I open Go Live, I'm gonna have that listening to changes as well. So I have my compiler running and I have my live server running, and I can change things. Cool. And this is Sass. That's it. Pretty cool, right? Simple, and it makes sense. It makes more sense than CSS. So, yeah. Anybody have questions? We're gonna open it for QA, I guess.
So when you're deploying your application, do you commit the generated CSS to the GitHub repository? How does that work?
So the generated CSS should be your production CSS. Because while you're doing your development, you're writing all these lines of Sass, you're creating multiple Sass files, and you're only compiling one Sass file into a CSS file, one giant CSS file with a bunch of classes. And that CSS file is what actually goes into the production bundle. And what happens is we have a lot of these libraries out there, frameworks, like you hear about React, where you're basically doing these frameworks, you work in the development environment that grants you a lot of different power-ups like this. And React actually has a Sass compiler, so you can create Sass files in React and it will compile for you. You don't have to do any of this setup. And when you build that bundle, that production bundle, where you kind of transform all the code from being development to being production ready, that goes live. It does all the setup for you. It builds a minified CSS, a minified JavaScript, a minified HTML, and just ships that.
Do you have any like resources or anything that you would point people to for learning Sass or like kind of practicing some of the skills?
Absolutely. So I took a course on Udemy by this guy, Jonas, that he does a really good job at explaining all the intricacies of CSS. Cool thing about Udemy is the courses are generally cheap there. You're very valuable. These are like things that you can keep and always reference it. There you go. This course here, Advanced CSS and Sass. If you watch this talk and you go back to this course, you're going to see where I took the idea of the navbar. As far as free resources, I believe Free Code Camp has a Sass section. I'm not sure if I did it. Only under libraries. Yep. So you can practice here too. It's for free. You'll learn the syntax and all the different mixins and functions and stuff that's available. Yeah, there's a ton of other free resources that I might not know, but it sounds good to keep an eye for this. Free's good.
So typically when you're like debugging CSS, you look at like the dev tools, right?
Right.
So is there any like tools that help map the CSS generated back to your CSS file so you can figure out like where exactly is your bug, or do you have any techniques that you recommend when you're trying to debug through?
Right. So when you're in your DevTools, I think you have access to the. I'm talking in React. You have access to the Webpack file over here, I believe. Under, I think it's under debugger sources. There you go. So over here, you can dig through the pre-bundle up file and check your CSS. Actually, let's try this on our local server. I'm curious to see that. Running. It's a very good question, by the way. I never thought about it. If we go to sources. This is our style CSS. How do you have access? I think mainly because the browser doesn't understand and it's pre-compiled syntax. But it would be pretty cool if the DevTools had support for that. Good question.
There might be like a plugin for Chrome. I haven't found one yet, but there might be something along those lines.
Right.
If you link the file with resources, you have the CSS file with HTML.
Right. If I link my Sass file to the HTML files that run in the browser, they don't understand Sass syntax.
Yes.
So let's try that. Yeah. So that's why that's got to be compiled into a minified CSS file that the browser goes and like, hey, I understand what's this variable here that you're doing. But I mean, we can try it. It's a good point. I don't know if Google has a lot of support for Chrome in Sass files. I don't see that. So, yeah. Nope. It's still black color. Yeah. So as you see here on the sources, I have my Sass file, but it doesn't understand that I'm assigning the yellow color to this color primary. So it doesn't render that. The file will still be there, it just doesn't talk well with the browser. Any more questions?
Next, if you already worked on a site, and then you did it without Sass, and then you wanted to use Sass on it. Do you have any tips for how not to cost things up too much, or would you recommend starting it over with Sass versus editing your existing?
Right, and that's the cool thing with Sass is Sass accepts any CSS code. Sass understands CSS. CSS doesn't understand Sass. So you can easily shift your CSS file into a Sass file and start abstracting things by using variables. You can abstract your colors. That already takes a chunk of websites because you might have a color scheme that you're always using and you just want to keep those colors and you just reference them. So that's a good thing. You can do that with colors. I highly recommend if you have the time to kind of like go in that CSS file and abstract it, in the long run, it looks a lot cleaner, easier to debug. later on.
Not exactly a Sass question, but because you've come from a boot camp background so recently, I was wondering if you had any tips for folks who were in your position 6 months ago, or any words of encouragement.
The number one, don't stop being hungry. Like, always be questioning why things are working the way they are, because that will lead you to some rabbit holes, but the rabbit holes will lead you to understanding things that you never knew. Like, I found out about Sass because I went in the CSS rabbit hole trying to debug something in my code, and I couldn't find the right color, and I was frustrated. There's got to be a way that I can store this color into something and just reuse it. And then I think one of my buddies I reached out, he's like, hey, why shouldn't we use Sass? I'm like, what's that? So yeah, that became the Sass rabbit hole, and I love using it. It's pretty handy. It's a good tool. So yeah, don't stop being hungry. Ask questions. Don't feel like you're asking silly questions. There's no silly questions. Anything is valid, web development related. If you don't know why a variable is a variable, if you don't understand why we have to use a function, ask that question. Because I'm sure your TAs, your friends, they'll be glad to help. A lot of people in this community, they're very close together. Everyone helps each other out and kind of like, hey, you should be using this design pattern, and I think it might be better for you. And you start doing it and you learn from it. Everyone has been pretty good.
Hey, how can we reach out to you if you have questions?
Yes. So here on the slide, I think I put my thing. Yeah, this is a good meme, right? There you go. So if you guys want to check out my GitHub, I have some projects there that I did throughout the boot camp. They were pretty fun. Some personal projects as well. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm usually pretty responsive, and we can exchange Slack contacts. I'm also on Nash Dev. Just find Wes Braga on Nash Dev if you're in that Slack channel. I check my Slack pretty often, more often than any other social media, so I'm usually more responsive on Slack.
Building off of that, where can we see your band's website? Because you're
My
an awesome
band?
bassist.
Yeah, so I play in a local rock band called Apple Pilot. There you go. And this is me. This is all the other folks. They're awesome. We have a single out. If you guys want to check it out, Field Day. It's on Spotify. I play bass on this track. It was a lot of fun. We recorded at Dark Horse, Blackbird. Something of these here. Blackbird Studio is now in Air Hill, I believe. That was a really cool experience. We worked with a really good engineer on the song, so it turned out good. All right, any more questions? Development related, music related, cartoons related, TV shows? Spider-Man? Is anyone sad about the Spider-Man thing? Yeah, it's devastating. Yeah, we don't talk about this, right?
No spoilers.
All right.
Thanks.